Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to another edition of the NXT UK Recap Show. I am Mr. Warren Hayes. And it's happening right here on Fightful Select, just for you premium, good-looking, intelligent subscribers to Fightful Select. Very glad, thankful even, that you decided to join in today, to pop into this recap of another 2 hours of NXT UK programming that was broadcast yesterday. These are going to be the editions. I'm going to be talking about the editions of January 2nd, 2019. I got to get the 2019 more easily into my vocabulary. The 2018 has settled itself in. You know, I'm going to be frank, and I'm also going to be Warren, by the way, but I'm also going to be transparent. It's going to take some time, so bear with me if that's all right. I mean, it's not as if it's not as if my language is always straight down and it never deviates from the beaten path, right? It's not as if you're not used to old Warren saying things or saying things that aren't exactly what he means, or maybe looking for certain words and they're just not coming to him. It's not unnew. Wouldn't you say? We're heading in to very, very closely to NXT TakeOver Blackpool. Gotta say, very much looking forward to it. I was really excited when it was announced. The card's taking shape nicely now. I'm more and more looking forward to it. I think they've got some good matches on, and I feel that they are giving it the, it's not going to be a takeover just in name. It looks like they're going to keep the amount of matches small. Not a lot of, not a big card, a few select matches, showcases for the brand. That's what the brand needs right now. I think the timing is great for a takeover. There was a lot of time for the brand to grow, find its sea legs. Now we really do have to dive in. So we're about a week and a half, about a week and a half out, aren't we? Something like that. We're on our way. We're going to get there. And just so you know, we're letting you folks know. I mean, you probably figured it out already, but since you're a Fightful Select member, I'm going to let you know there's going to be an NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool post show on January 12th, immediately after the show. I'm going to be there. That's your incentive. That's what you want. You want more Warren Hayes. Yeah, it's going to be cool. I'm really looking forward to it, and it'll be nice for us here on the Eastern Seaboard. It's going to be a nice afternoon. It's going to happen Saturday afternoon for us. It's going to be nice and relaxed. We'll do a little post show, then we'll go have some dinner, or at least start cooking dinner. Well, we're talking about the card. The card's been updated. We're going to talk about a few events as we go through the recap, but card's shaping up real nicely. We already knew that we were going to get Toni Storm challenging Rhea Ripley for the NXT UK Women's Championship. So that's that we already knew, but now it's been confirmed. We're getting Pete Dunne, who's going to defend against Joe Coffey. And we're also going to get a no disqualification match between Eddie Dennis and Dave Mastiff. And I am all for that. I'm glad that they're pulling out a takeover match for those two. So that's really cool. There might be 1 or 2 matches left to be added, but they haven't been announced officially, so I'm not going to spoil them because I want to keep everything spoiler free here. But there is another, well, as you know, there is going to be the championship, the finals for the NXT UK Tag Team Championships that are going to take place there. We learned during the course of these 2 episodes that Mustache Mountain were going to end up there. They won their semifinal match. So Mustache Mountain, but versus who? Well, we're going to find out next week. Speaking of TakeOver Blackpool, Toni Storm recently had an interview with The Express. She said that she says that her TakeOver Blackpool match is potentially the biggest match of her career. She said, this is potentially the biggest match of my career so far. Obviously, I have already fought Rhea for the NXT UK Women's Championship, and I came up short. I actually got injured in that match. My legs lost feeling, and I went through a horrible injury. But I won the Mae Young Classic, and I get another shot at a TakeOver. There's a lot of pressure on me right now going into this, but I got a good feeling, and I think it's going to be a really successful night. We do hope so, don't we? Or do we? Well, maybe we'll talk predictions next week. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, you can go check out that full report over on Fightful.com. Number one source for all your wrestling news. I don't know where else you're getting your news, you weirdos. All right, let's get to it. Let's start talking about NXT UK episode 21. I started off with Travis Banks, the Kiwi Buzzsaw, versus Jamie Ahmed, and it turned out to be much more of a showcase match for Banks here, with some nice work at first, tripping Ahmed down and floating over into a submission attempt. But Ahmed gets to the ropes, though. Ahmed battles back, pummels Banks down, hits a seated splash, covers Banks for 2. Travis Banks battles back, corner drop kick right on Ahmed's back. Gets a German suplex on him into a bridge, but only gets 2. Ahmed strikes back, but eats a shotgun drop kick for his troubles. Springboard stomp in the corner by Banks, followed up by the slice of heaven, and Travis, your boy, Travis, gets the win, and good for him. I'm all for Travis Banks. That guy's got he's really got he's excellent. He had a wonderful tournament earlier in June. I hope he continues to get lots and lots of momentum in NXT UK because he has a fantastic work rate, fantastic style. Really hope that it can translate into a lot of success for him on the brand. But after the match, music hits. Whose music hits? Well, it's Jordan Devlin's music. My boy, my Irish compatriot. Well, because I'm part Irish. But then again, who isn't? Jordan Devlin comes out. And you remember last week, Devlin won a match and he said, now, I'm taking care of all the posers in backstage. You remember that? All the chumps. Well, it turns out that, he said there's one guy in particular that I'm coming for. Well, it's Travis Banks he was coming for. So that's good. I'm okay with that. Jordan basically comes out and he challenges Banks' integrity, his loyalty to his country, to his family. Yeah. Hitting low. Getting some low blows in there. Hitting the man's man's pride, right? And it sort of stays like that. No match announced, no match made. Should we speculate that this will be a match added to TakeOver Blackpool? Because if you think about it, usually a TakeOver has 5 matches, right? Currently we have the UK Championship, we have the Women's UK Championship, we have the tag title tournament final. We have Dennis versus Mastiff. So we have room for one more, technically speaking. War Games only announced 4 matches. War Games last year, War Games 2, they only announced 4 matches, but we ended up with 5 nonetheless. Got a bit of a swerve there. If they're keeping in the TakeOver tradition, there should be 5 matches. I am all for Jordan Devlin and Travis Banks going for it. We'll see what happens. Pretty sure next week something is going to get settled. Next, we have a video package about Gallus and Mustache Mountain, their brewing, simmering feud. The winner of their match, because that's the main event of the evening, the 2 other members of Gallus, other than Joe Coffey, Mark Coffey and Wolfgang facing Mustache Mountain for the tag team championship in the tag team championship tournament semifinals. I'm getting there. I'll say the words. I'll put them together. A nice little video package there. Then apparently we're getting also Eddie Dennis versus Dave Mastiff in the following episode, in episode 22. So that's something to look forward to. We're going to talk about it. Next match we had is Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan versus Fabian Aichner and Marcel Bartel. The European Union. Man, commentary are really, really pushing this European Union thing. They even started to talk about Brexit just to make sure that we understood that the Europeans here have nothing to do, or well, they're nothing to do, but you know, the political lines have been drawn. You know, tensions are high between Britain and the European Union. You know, so just to make really, really sure that we understand that the German and the Italian here, they're bad guys. There's no accidents here, folks. This is someone thought of this and said, this is a great idea. So the match starts off between Williams and Bartel with some back and forth. Jordan then tags in early, but Bartel gets him into a wrist lock. Jordan breaks free. Instead of doing anything, he dances. And obviously he has, you know, he doesn't know Axel very well. Doesn't know Marcel Bartel very well. Bartel is having none of this nonsense. And Jordan needs a double chop to the throat. Dude, you need to focus on your match. You know what? At this point, if I'm Petey Williams, Kenny Williams, not Petey Williams, that's another Williams, Kenny Williams. If I'm Kenny Williams at this point, I am done with Amir Jordan. You toss that dead weight, man. You know, sports entertainment is one thing, but I want to win matches. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, the double chop to the throat, and from that point on, Amir Jordan is your babyface in peril for the entirety of the match. Bartel pummels him down into his corner, tags in Aichner, some chops and some forearms ensue. Jordan gets whipped into the corner. He avoids Aichner running in at him. Instead, hits a flying body press off the turnbuckles, but Aichner catches him. Jordan wriggles out, but eats a kick to the back of the head by Bartel, who's on the apron. The ref was distracted in this sequence. You know, Jordan, it wasn't his most shining moment here. Aichner's back in control thanks to this. Bartel comes in. He does the 9 chant. 9. I think it's more like 9, isn't it? I took German when I was in college, university. Been a while. My German isn't as sharp as it once was. My Spanish is a lot sharper. And if you can even figure out where that's a reference from, I'll buy you a beer. Or a non-alcoholic beverage of your choice. A coffee, perhaps. I'll even make you a coffee. So both of the heels double team Jordan. He tries to fight back, but he eats a spine buster by Aichner, followed by a running kick by Bartel to the chest. Aichner covers Jordan, but only gets 2. The heels are entirely in control. Jordan tries to get to Williams. They knock Williams off the apron. Bartel hits a butterfly suplex on Jordan and covers him, but again, only gets 2. Jordan, though, eventually does get the hot tag to Williams. Springboard back elbow on Bartel. Knocks Aichner off to the floor. He shoulder blocks Bartel, runs the ropes, dodges a lariat from Bartel, then dives to the outside. After avoiding that lariat, dives right to the outside on Aichner. And for some reason, Jordan tags himself back in. Jordan has been in the match for most of the match. He's exhausted. He's the guy who's had the, who's taken the beating. Williams is basically fresh here, but no, Jordan tags himself back in. Bartel gets him into a tree of woe. Basement dropkick follows. Exploder suplex covers Jordan, but it's Williams who comes to break it up. Aichner slams Williams back first into the barricade, and the heels hit an assisted German suplex, which is okay as a finisher, but I don't know. Maybe they're still a budding tag team. Maybe they can find something else. I mean, it works. It doesn't look all that impressive as far as a big tag team double team finisher goes. But it's good enough to secure the win for them. Good. You know, I'm really digging this team. Aichner and Bartel. I mean, they even have a segment a little later on, right? I'm going to scroll down to it. Give me a sec here. But they do have a segment where let me see here. Oh, there. Okay. Yeah, they're or is it in the next show? Yeah, it's in the next show. They have a segment where they're arguing with Sid Scala. Bartel saying, you know, we deserve to be in the semifinal tag team match, you know. And the attitude that they have, the thing they have going is that Aichner, you know, he's the hothead. He's, you know, he's ready to go. He's got the toothpick now in his mouth. He's wearing leather, you know, he's ready to throw down. But Bartel is like, you know, he's the smart guy. Well, not that Aichner's not smart, but he's like he's the brains of the operation. He's like, no, hang on a second. We're not going to do anything rash here. I like this dynamic, and I like both of them. I've talked about Fabian Aichner before on NXT. You know, he was lost in the shuffle. He was such a great talent. I'm glad that he's finding some footing in NXT UK. It's about time that they do something with him. Signing Bartel, again, another guy who potentially ran the risk of being lost in the North American territory. I'm so glad that they're doing fantastic work with him in the UK right now, just 2 weeks in, and he already feels important. The team feels important. It doesn't feel like they were just thrown together. It feels like they actually have a plan for this, that they actually work well together. It's not like Tyson T-Bone and Saxon Huxley, which just feels like, oh, look, we got these two guys here. Why don't you? Here you go. Just do tag team moves, you know. After their match, Toni Storm and Deonna Purrazzo are arguing about who should go to TakeOver. They agree to a match. They agreed to a match, folks. Toni Storm and Deonna Purrazzo. Next, we have another segment with Johnny Saint and Sid Scala, who are about to run down the TakeOver card when Joe Coffey arrives and interrupts and says this is his opportunity. It's his time. It's his kingdom, his NXT UK, blah, blah, blah. Says it's about him. He wants a match against Pete Dunne at TakeOver Blackpool. And Coffey is told that they are going to take this into advisement. Then they head back into Johnny Saint's office. You know, I think at this point that Johnny Saint and Sid Scala, they have to do their press points somewhere else than right in front of Johnny Saint's office because they can't get it done. They were interrupted by Rhea Ripley last week. Now it's Joe Coffey. It just doesn't work. They're going to have to find another area to do them. Maybe an undisclosed location where talent can get to them. Candy Floss hits the ring to face Ginny. They lock up straight off. Floss gives Ginny a hug, who doesn't really appreciate it, though. Ginny gets her down into a hammerlock. A little joint manipulation follows. No, not Ginny, sorry. Candy Floss gets her down into a hammerlock, and a little joint manipulation follows. But Ginny maneuvers out of it, gets her into a head scissors, and reverses it into an ankle lock. There's a lot of back and forth grappling here, which is really cool. Floss trips Ginny a couple of times and taunts her, takes an opportunity to make a show of it. Ginny Couture doesn't appreciate it, and honestly, you shouldn't be messing around with a the former Progress Women's Champion. Ginny tries to fight to fight back. She goes to the second turnbuckle. No, I'm sorry. Candy Floss tries to. She goes to the second turnbuckle, but Ginny swipes her off, nails her with the forearm, covers her for 2. More grappling ensues between both women, with Ginny ending up being much more in control. She drives a nice heel kick to the back of Candy Floss, whips her into the corner, but she charges in, but eats Floss's boot. Floss hits a shotgun drop kick, a hesitation drop kick into the corner, but Ginny powers out of a straitjacket. Japanese arm drags her down, and finishes Candy Floss off with the touch of couture, that wrist lock rolling kick. Boom! Right to the side of the head. And that's your match. Building up Ginny next as a threat. So you have to wonder, are they building up Ginny here? Is it is this some foreshadowing towards Toni Storm maybe winning the NXT UK title, women's UK title at Blackpool? Or are they just building up some credible competition so that we can have women's feuds and women's fights outside of the title picture, which would actually be a good idea? That's kind of what I'm hoping for. Main event of the episode 21, Mark Coffey and Wolfgang, the Gallus Boys, versus Tyler Bate and Trent Seven, the Mustache Mountain Boys. Joe Coffey comes out with Mark and Wolfgang. So the Gallus forces are out in force. Eh? Bate comes out firing on Mark Coffey, some strikes and a drop kick follows. Seven comes in, scoop slam on Mark, covers him, but only gets 2. Another quick tag to Bate, who comes in, more double team on Coffey. Bate comes off Seven's shoulders with the somersault senton, covers Coffey again, only gets 2. Coffey is in trouble, so he rolls out of the ring. Wolfgang then distracts the ref, distracts Tyler Bate. Coffey then runs in and blindsides Bate, and then the heels get a little measure of control here. Wolfgang comes in, strikes Bate down, covers him, only gets 2. He has Bate in the headlock, who tries to battle to a tag, but he can't do it. Instead, he Hurricane Rana's Wolfgang, and then both teams get a tag to their partners. So Seven and Mark Coffey come in. Some chops by Seven, followed by a DDT on Mark Coffey. I think Trent Seven hits Mark with the black coffee, I think, which is Joe Coffey's old finisher before All the Best for the Bells. I think. Feel free to correct me in the comments, folks, but I'm pretty sure that's what that was. He covers Mark, but only gets 2. Goes for the 7 stars lariat, but fails. Instead, he eats a back body drop by Mark Coffey. Excuse me. In comes Wolfgang with a running senton. Covers 7 only for 2. Right back into a body block. Onto down 7. Covers again. Again, only gets 2. And the heels start to work on Trent, cutting him off from Bate. Coffey wallops 7 with a forearm to the face. And he sold that. Oh boy. He covers 7, but only gets 2. There's lots of hold strikes. The heels are slowing things down considerably. Very classic heel stuff. 7 finally gets out of a waist lock, but Wolfgang tosses him to the outside. Coffey comes for him, suplexes him to the floor. He dodges an attack by Wolfgang, runs to the ring, tags Bate in, who goes for a dive on Wolfgang and completely overshoots him. Wolfgang actually had to catch him to prevent Bate from actually diving straight into the audience. That was kind of funny, and you could tell that Tyler Bate thought that was a little funny as well. He had a big grin on his face. That was it could have gone a lot worse. Wolfgang did good there. They get back into the ring with They start throwing fists. Bate hits a back elbow from the second turnbuckle, takes out Coffee on the outside with a dive, gets back in, exploder suplex, kip up, standing shooting star press, covers Wolfgang, but Mark Coffey breaks it up. That was a great hot tag by Tyler Bate here. Like he sustained a great pace throughout all of this. Airplane spin on Wolfgang by Tyler Bate, clockwise, then counterclockwise, slams Wolfgang. Coffey gets a Kakina clutch on Tyler Bate. He's clasped, he's got it in, he's on his back. Then Bate waist locks Wolfgang, flips him over into a German suplex while Mark Coffey is on his back. It's talking about how strong Tyler Bate is as cliche as talking about Okada's drop kicks at this point. It's like, yeah, but you can't help but you have to mention it. You have to talk about it. That kid, man, he is one powerhouse. Wolfgang's not a small guy. Tyler Bate's a small guy. I mean, small in stature. He's built, he's bulky, but he's shorter than everyone else. That's impressive, man. Sometimes for completely different reasons, when I watch Tyler Bate, I kind of get the same ooblis. You know what I'm talking about? The ooblis. I get the same ooblis as when I used to watch, or when I used to get the opportunity to see Taz in his ECW days, where again, this was a short, stocky guy, not shorter, stocky guy, very, very strong, who'd pull off these moves in the ring where you're like, he shouldn't be tossing men around like he's doing. He shouldn't be doing that, but he is. There's some cool stuff by your boy Bate. The Tyler Driver 97 is avoided, but instead Bate eats a headbutt by Mark Coffey, and an enziguri gets covered, but only gets 2. Mark Coffey then signals for Joe to interfere, but that brings out Pete Dunne. So you have your British Strong Boys who are there in the ring, and Dunne, well, not all in the ring, but Dunne comes out, and he and Joe, they start to brawl. He X-plexes Joe on the apron on the outside. Meanwhile, back in the ring, bop and bang by Bate on Mark Coffey. They finish that up. The boys, the British Strong Boys, they finish that one up. It's done. The Mustache Mountain win, advance to the finals at TakeOver Blackpool. But after the match, we're not done. Joe Coffey goes after Dunne again. That wasn't a pun. I wasn't being funny. I should have just called it as a pun, and then you would have been like, "Wow, that Warren guy, he's so smooth." The remaining members of Gallus take out Mustache Mountain, and then the baby faces are able to battle back, and they stand tall at the end. Pete Dunne grabs a microphone and confirms that he accepts Joe Coffey's challenge for TakeOver Blackpool. And then they all go back after each other again. The big boys all smacking each other around. That's fantastic. It was a good match. It was a good match. Good episode of NXT UK. Nice balance between the showcases, the showcase matches, and some more competitive work. I liked it. It was a lot of fun. Let's move on to episode 22, which starts off strong. Tony Storm versus Fightful alumni Deonna Purrazzo. Handshake to begin, because sportsmanship. There's some grappling between the two. There's a lot of grappling between the two. A lot of back and forth to begin with. Some really nice counters by both women. That ends with Storm sliding out of a head scissors. Waist leg by Purrazzo gets Toni Storm into an armbar, but then Storm drags her down into a head scissors herself. Purrazzo does her headstand to escape the head scissors. And Toni Storm gets back up and extends a hand once again in the spirit of competition, in show of respect. But Purrazzo kicks it away. She's all business now. Purrazzo gets in control. Some knees, some chops. Storm fights back, runs the ropes in a basement drop kick. She covers but only gets 2. Hits a suplex on Purrazzo, and then she covers her again but only gets 2. Storm figure fours the legs and reaches over for a headlock. Purrazzo has to reach the ropes to break this one up. Purrazzo then drags Storm down with a leg drag. That's what you do usually. That's how you drag someone down. It's usually with a dragging maneuver, such as a leg drag. Yanks Storm's arm back, covers her, only gets 2. She starts working the arm bar. She starts working the arm for the Fujiwara armbar. I will never be able to say that without trying again, without repeating. I am unable to say that the first time it comes out of my mouth. Anyway, Purrazzo's working the arm, twists it, leans it up against her lifted legs to hyperextend it. Purrazzo then leg sweeps Storm and Koji clutch by Purrazzo. She's picking this arm apart in all sorts of positions. Purrazzo then hits the ropes. A kick is blocked, and Storm takes her down. Hip attack by Storm in the corner. She goes for Storm 0. It's blocked. But Purrazzo nonetheless eats a Storm headbutt. Purrazzo then gets covered for 2. A hip toss by Purrazzo follows. Cartwheel drop kick covers Toni Storm for 2 and goes right into a Rings of Saturn type like submission. That was pretty cool. She then butterflies both arms and Storm agonizingly reaches the bottom rope. It was a hell of a sequence because Purrazzo was really cinching it in. She was cranking it. Looked good. And Storm didn't reach the ropes like within the first 5 seconds. She battled for it. It felt like a fight. Purrazzo trash talks a little and it lights a fire under Toni Storm. Storm avoids another armbar with a great transition into a German suplex, followed up by the Storm 0 and the win. So there's still nothing to worry about, folks. Toni Storm is still your number 1 contender. She deserves to be at Blackpool, in Blackpool, at TakeOver Blackpool, in Blackpool. Nah, you know what I mean? Deonna Purrazzo, man. She's fantastic. What can you say? This was a great match, and I don't think my recap really did it justice. I think you should go out of your way to see it. This is probably the second best women's match that they've had since starting NXT UK. I think the first really outstanding match they had was Dakota Kai and Toni Storm. Now, Purrazzo and Storm was really, really good. Yeah, go check it out. I mean, and you know, on an aside here, I think as it stands right now, the women's division in NXT UK could use a little more battery life. Could use or at least a change of batteries. I think it's good. You know, they've established Rhea Ripley, you know, as someone to chase, a dominating champion, large dominating woman. Established Toni Storm as, they obviously wanted to put her in more of a plucky underdog situation. That's fine. I'm all good with that. I don't think we buy necessarily Toni Storm as an underdog, but or at least a hard worker, ready to roll up her sleeves and get the job done. But otherwise, I feel like they've been doing quite a bit of disservice to the women that they have right now in NXT UK. I'm hoping that that they give more and more time to the women. I hope they give them more time to develop their characters, especially when you have such young and bright talent as Millie McKenzie and Zia Brookside, who are there as well and who are fantastic in the ring and are able to create great moments. It's kind of a shame that right now we're not seeing any interaction between Pete Dunne and Millie McKenzie, because I thought that that pairing on the British Indies was fantastic. And I understand it's an intergender thing, but it's still, there'd still be room for them to play off that, odd couple friendship, even if they don't compete in a tag team with each other. There still could be room for that, and that would help establish McKenzie a lot. Develop new interesting characters for the women, but just give them time to wrestle, give them time to really create. Right now, I feel they haven't been doing much of a service. I don't think Isla Dawn's brief moment challenging Rhea Ripley did her any favors. They're building up Jenny Couture. Tony's on top. As I've been saying since this started, the brand is finding its footing. It's looking for looking to establish its stars. So I can understand that, that there are some people right now who are being featured more prominently because they want to create the backbone upon which everything can be built or carried, I guess, if I'm using a physiological metaphor. If you're creating a backbone, it's because you want to carry stuff. But I mean, this excuse in a certain way that I've created for NXT UK, it will only carry so far. And I think that once we're past TakeOver, the honeymoon is going to be over, and we're going to be looking for some really, really interesting stuff. In the past few weeks, they've done a great job establishing on the men's side some real players. They're doing a fantastic job with Joe Coffey, Dave Mastiff, Eddie Dennis, Jordan Devlin. I think they've all become legitimate backbones to the division. Mark Andrews, Flash Morgan Webster, the European Union guys. But this has to explode at some point. Now it can't just be we're simmering. Something has to bubble up. So if this is truly a takeover, not just a name, but really a takeover, well, I think we can be all fairly optimistic that this is a show that's probably gonna blow our socks off, and that's what the brand needs right now. It needs that evening, that event where everyone's gonna be like, whoa, okay, this has become part of my must-see wrestling watch block. Be looking forward to it, that's for sure. But as far as the women go, anyway, to wrap, I went off a bit on a tangent here, but they do have to pay extra special care and attention to the women right now. We'll let the Toni Storm Rhea Ripley thing carry us into Blackpool, but then after, I want to see a lot more women in much more interesting situations than what we're seeing now. Like I said, they're building, but at some point, man, you want to be able, you build your house, then at some point you want to live in it. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Sid Scala and Johnny Saint are with Rod C in a segment, and they say that the second semifinal will be next week as Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster take on the grizzled young veterans Zach Gibson and James Drake. That'll be cool. Next, we get Wild Boar Mike Hitchman in an actual showcase match against Josh Morrell. And I was pleasantly surprised by this. Hitchman, I thought was going to be one of these, was going to be like a mid-card enhancement guy that could work. But no, well, at least this week, they went and put him forward. I'm like, cool, because I took a liking to him. Hitchman starts off with a hip toss. Morrell tries to get some offense in, but Hitchman has his number. Senton across the back on Morrell, covers him and only gets 2. Some nerve holds follow, and that allows Morrell to escape. Drop kick Hitchman, Pele kick Hitchman, cover Hitchman, but only for 2. He hits a running European uppercut in the corners. He does an off the he does a sunset flip off the second rope onto Hitchman, but the wild boar gets him in a fireman's carry. Gets him into the fireman's carry, slam into the buckles. Cannonball senton into that same corner, and Hitchman hits a splash from the top rope. I think it was a frog splash. I think he called it the boar splash. But anyway, he covers Morrell for the win. Fun little match here. And I mean, if they want to position Mike Hitchman as a legitimate contender, I think he has a lot of upside. His offense is super explosive. It's very, very snug. I like him. Let's do it. Excuse me. Choking on water. That's a new one. Joseph Connors cuts a promo about some shiny new toys and being sold a lie that there is no we in We Are NXT UK. There's only yourself, and he's only about himself, and he will break every single one of these new toys. Okay, Joseph. Okay. You can tell that they're not quite sure what direction they wanted to go with Connors, but that's fine. We'll see. He's the disgruntled man. It's not as if. Then again, the disgruntled guy. There's a couple of them in NXT UK, isn't there? Travis Banks is doing an iPhone promo. This is a shame because a couple of weeks ago I mentioned that I really, really liked the aesthetic that they had established for backstage promos and scenes, vignettes, with the camera, the camera actually having a film grain to it, where there, the background would really be out of focus. It gave it a nice feel. It felt like it was something special just for NXT UK. Then you have Travis Banks doing iPhone promos and boo. And he basically calls Devlin out for calling him out. But again, still no match. Still no match. See what happens next week. Then we have that Bartel and Aichner segment that I talked about earlier. And then we had the rematch between Dave Mastiff and Eddie Dennis. And I will keep saying this. I will say it again. I find the camera shaking with each step Dave Mastiff takes is stupid. It's stupid. They have to stop that shit. They had stopped doing it. For some reason, they started back 2 weeks ago or something like that, or a couple of episodes ago. I don't like it. Dennis charges right in on Mastiff, whipping him repeatedly into the corner. He stomps him. He charges back in, but eats a Mastiff elbow. Mastiff with some open hands. European uppercut. Dennis with an elbow of his own. They each run the ropes, and Mastiff hits a big crossbody on Dennis. Dennis avoids getting twisted up into a German. Reaches the ropes to break the waist lock. But instead, he eats a drop kick by Mastiff, who covers Dennis and only gets 2. He ties Dennis up into the ropes and elbows him a few times to the side of the head. Dennis rolls to the outside. Mastiff goes after him. Dennis picks him up into the severed bridge position, which would have been severe if he had landed that. Would have been crazy. Severed bridge all the way up top, like 8 feet into the air, onto the floor. No. Mastiff slid out of that one, though. Finley roll by Mastiff on the outside, though. That was cool. He charges Dennis, who moves out of the way, and Mastiff hits the steps. Both guys are able to beat the count back in the ring. They slug it out. They're on their knees, slugging at each other, back to their feet. They're just wailing into each other, and they accidentally hit the ref, who calls for the bell. Double disqualification, but they keep brawling. Officials try to come down and break these two big monsters up. And Johnny Saint comes out and announces that they will both face each other one more time at TakeOver Blackpool in a no disqualifications match. I think it's going to be a good time. Next week, we're getting a 6-man tag. British Strong Style versus Gallus. I am there for that. But in the meantime, we're getting a contract signing, folks. A good old-fashioned main roster contract signing on NXT UK. It is the first historic NXT UK Championship contract signing. I'm shocked that they didn't play that off any more than that. I'm really shocked. So Joe Coffey and Pete Dunne meet in the ring for some paperwork. Coffey, look, here's Warren's skipping record. Joe Coffey looks and carries himself like a goddamn star. He legitimately looks like a contender to Dunne at this point. He really does. Will he beat him? That's a whole other story. But he looks like a legitimate guy who could take him out. And that was one of the main concerns I'm sure they had heading into takeovers. Like, who are they going to put in a position against Pete Dunne that is going to come across as credible? They didn't have all that many choices. Aside, if you want to look at the extraordinary match that Dunne had with with Jordan Devlin, where Jordan Devlin came this close to beating Pete, to getting the best of him. Devlin is positioned as a credible threat. His time will come up again. But right now, they needed a big guy who can carry himself in the mic, who has extraordinary heel charisma, who knows exactly who he is, where he's going. I'm sold on Joe Coffey. I don't know if you noticed. Sid Scala and Johnny Saint are in there as well. Scala tries to get them into seat, but Coffey grabs a mic instead. He says there will be history made because there will be a changing of the guard in NXT UK. He chases Saint and Scala off. He's like, bugger off, you chumps. And they leave. As it stands right now, I think in the grand history of general managers of various WWE brands, as it stands right now, I don't think Johnny Saint is going to rank up there with the best. He's not going to be up there with the Pages. He's not going to be up there at all with the Pages or the Teddy Longs. Nah. He's not. He gets shoo by his top guys. Yeah, so Coffee goes on and says, yeah, he says this is his, this country, the brand, it's all his. How long have you been a champion, Pete? Done too long. Why are you still the champion? Because I have not been here. It's now time for the Iron King to stand and claim his throne. Coffee signs the document. Pete grabs his hand as he's signing it and snaps his fingers. This is your baby face, folks. He signs the document as well. The rest of Gallus come out. That distracts Dunn long enough for Joe Coffey to power bomb your champion, your NXT UK champion, through the table. He was looking so good. He was all dapper. He was in those those nice British strong style threads that he, Bate and Seven like to take pictures in. They're very, very well dressed gentlemen. I hope he didn't tear, his trousers or something. That would have been a shame. Anyway, Joe Coffey stands tall at the end of the first historic NXT UK Championship contract signing. And we've got 1 week left going into TakeOver Blackpool. There you have it. That was a bit of a short episode. Episode 22 was. It finished easily 10 minutes in. 10 minutes before, I should say. It was a quick one. So I'm excited to see what happens next week. I don't know how long WWE is still going to broadcast two back-to-back episodes of NXT UK, but your boy Warren will be here. This is a gut feeling, right? Because the schedule for next week on the network hasn't been released yet. It's a gut feeling in the pit of my chest cavity. That's where my gut is, in the pit of my chest cavity. I think next week we're getting just 1 hour, and I think we're going to fall into an hour schedule. I really do believe that WWE wanted to stretch out these episodes of NXT UK much longer before getting the first takeover in. I feel that everything that's been happening with the signings in Britain, it's all elite wrestling being set up. I think they wanted to get the ball rolling a lot quicker. Maybe the timeline was accelerated a little bit, which is why they started broadcasting 2 hours a week instead of one. So I have the feeling that next week we're going to get just the 1 hour because some of the matches they announced for next week, the next episode, feel like go home show material. The 6-man tag between British Strong Style and Gallus, that's go home show written all over it. The semifinal match for the NXT UK tag titles, that could logically be go home show material as well. There's a lot going on here next week, and I feel we're going to zone into just 1 hour that'll lead us into TakeOver Blackpool. So whatever happens, I'm going to be covering it. If it's only 1 hour, then I'm going to come back to the original plan, the original formula for this, which is to have an NXT 205 Live NXT UK recap show on Wednesdays. But if we're still getting 2 back-to-back hours of NXT UK, I'll be back on Thursday for another NXT UK exclusive show so that we can talk about those 2 hours. We'll see what happens. Fightful, Select. All right, it's important for me that you guys get adequate coverage, that we can talk about the stuff that's happening in its own time. Take the time to discuss it, to talk over it, to think about it, mull it over, instead of just rushing everything. Nah. It's not my style. That's not my style. But we'll see what happens. We'll be there. We'll adjust. We'll fix everything. We'll make it happen. Guys, thank you all so much for tuning in and watching. I hope you enjoyed it, watching or listening. If you're listening to this on the audio, Fightful Select. Tell your friends about it. Tell everyone about it. Great service. You know, the more people we get on here, the more stuff, the more content Sean is ready to dish out. He's not holding anything back. Just if we get more support, we can give more. That's how it works. Get everyone on here. Get them all here. It was a lot of fun. Thank you all. We'll see you next time.